Hello and welcome to another Lord of the Rings online video with me, Balthelion. So there's been some big news that's come out in the last 24 hours from Standing Stone Games. For those of you that might not have heard the news, it's probably been spammed in-game on your world chats if you've been in-game. But Standing Stone Games are going to be doing a new server where they're kind of going to replicate how it used to be but not. So they're calling this the Legendary Servers. Okay. And the idea of it is basically to kind of simulate how the game used to be starting back at launch, so when level 50 was the cap, and then over time kind of increase the level cap as you work towards each expansion, so, you know, Mines of Moria, Siege of Mirkwood, and so on and so forth. Now, a lot of people seem to be a little bit confused about the details because they haven't read the details, and they're assuming, oh great, LOTRO is doing some vanilla servers, so, you know, we're going to start off with Shadows of Angmar, how it was at launch, play that, then it's going to get updated to Mines of Moria, and it'll be just as it was at Mines of Moria time, and then, you know, each expansion as it was. And that's not the case, and it's quite clearly laid out on what we're going to look at today in this video. But basically, it's going to be all the current systems that are in the game, so you're still going to have things like, you know, the trait trees and all that kind of stuff. But you will level up to whatever the level cap was at each particular range. Obviously, only the content that was available at that time you can do. So, you know, if Shadows of Angmar is the end game to begin with, you're only having instances that were around in the regions up till Angmar, level 50. You're not going to have, you know, access to Moria instances at level 60 because you won't be able to do level 60 or go to those zones. So we'll start with this tweet then. So I came home yesterday and I was busy in going out yesterday, so I couldn't actually do a video straight away when it was breaking news, but they tweeted this out saying an invitation to relive the legend, and they've put in the link and saying coming November 2018. So this is not long, this is just a couple of weeks away, and they've managed to keep this under wraps, which is quite impressive. So they've tweeted this, everyone's been going crazy. Generally response has been positive. The comments that I have seen that have been negative in any way, it's generally people saying, well, I'm not going to roll a character on that server, or I'm not a VIP subscriber, which you would need to be to roll characters on this server. We'll come to that in a moment. So I'm not going to roll on there because I'm not a VIP. Or people saying, well, it's not true vanilla, so I'm not interested. But other than that, a lot of people are happy to kind of have the opportunity to do this. So let's have a look at the finer points. So they have put in this article that they've linked in here, where you can read all the finer points. So, we are excited to announce a new way to experience the Lord of the Rings Online, Legendary Worlds. That's worlds plural, key to know. Relive the tales of Middle-earth chapter by chapter, visiting iconic locations and adventuring with new friends or reconnecting with old ones on the path of Frodo, Gandalf and the Fellowship of the Ring. Join us this fall on a legendary world and make a fresh start with a brand new character. See Tolkien's bustling realm anew, whether for your first or 50th time. Initially, the legendary world, and in this case they've used singular rather than plural, so is there one or more? Because other things make it sound like it's only one world. Initially, the legendary world will begin at the very start of the game and run through Angmar, and then open new regions and levels over time. Relive the legend where everyone is here and the story is now. Look for more information about this subscriber-only experience, so only VIP players will be able to play on this server, coming soon on LOTRO.com and on social media. So they haven't given too much away in terms of details yet, but they have posted a reasonably lengthy FAQ, so let's go through this. So what is the difference between a legendary server and a standard server? On standard servers, players can reach the maximum level cap, currently 120, with no restrictions, and players adventure in the story beyond the destruction of the One Ring. The legendary server starts out with only the initial level 50 and below content. Okay, now that's interesting because a lot of the stuff that is now in the game at level 50 wasn't necessarily in at launch. So cases in point, Evendim was added later, Thorkel was added later, but it seems that literally everything that is below level 50 now will be in on Legendary server launch. Okay, so again, it's another difference from how it differed from true vanilla. With a focus on the Shadows of Angmar story, Gradually, the level cap and story content unlocks over time, allowing players to relive the early Lord of the Rings story anew together. And do I need a subscription to play on the Legendary server? The Legendary server is available only to VIP subscribers along with lifetime VIP subscribers. Okay, so if you are on a free or a premium account, you will not have access to this server. You'll have to subscribe, and you're only going to have access to this server while you're subscribed. Okay, because otherwise you're going to drop down to having a premium account. Can we transfer characters off or on to this server? Players cannot transfer characters onto this server. There are currently no plans to allow transfers off of Legendary worlds until these servers have caught up with our other live worlds. Okay, so there's reasons for this. It's basically so you can't bring across a level 120 character to a world where level 50 is the cap. And sure, you might be able to bring a level 40 character across to that world, but there's going to be complications to it, and they're basically just saying we don't want to deal with these complications. Okay, we just want to keep it nice and straightforward. So everything on there stays the same. Eventually, whenever it catches up, the cap could have raised a couple more times before the Legendary server catches up with the live normal servers. Who knows? The level cap could be 130, 140 by then. So you will not be able to move characters around until then. Okay, so anything that is on the Legendary world stays on the Legendary world. Anything that is on the other worlds can be moved around freely among the other worlds. Okay. Will I be able to access the LOTRO store on the Legendary server? Yes, but some items may not be available until the Legendary server advances further in the story or level cap. Okay, so what they mean by this is, say, items like the Valar consumables to immediately level up to, say, level 95, level 100, whatever. You're not going to be able to buy those because they're not relevant to gameplay up until level 50. Okay, Legendary items won't be available in that initial pass because Legendary items didn't exist when level 50 was the end game. Okay, so you're probably not going to be able to buy things related to Legendary items on the store. Your Starlit crystals, various empowerment scrolls, that kind of stuff. So for any systems that are kind of beyond the current level cap, they're not going to be in there. Mounted combat, things like that. Will there be trait trees? Yes. Okay. Can I play a Rune Keeper, a Warden, or a Bjorning? Yes. Can I play a High Elf? Yes. Okay. So this is all going to tie into some other things they're going to talk about. Basically, when you're playing on this Legendary world, it is the same code base as live. Okay. So any systems that are on live are also on the Legendary server. Okay. So things like trait trees that are in live now but weren't in original Shadows of Angmar, you're still going to have those. So it's going to differ to original vanilla, and that's kind of one of the things that's kind of like irritated a few people. Now, obviously there's going to be differences, so you're kind of like playing how it used to be, but kind of not. Okay, which would be interesting because it's something different. Okay, now that could expose some weird and wonderful stuff that maybe you're going to have some pretty terrible trait tree builds at level 50 because trait trees were never designed with level 50 being the ultimate end goal. That trait trees were introduced with the Helm's Deep expansion when 85 was the level cap, so you were expected to have a few more points then. So there could be some interesting things like that, but it'd be interesting to see how people react to having trait trees with a level 50 cap. Maybe there'll be some interesting min-max builds that come out of that. Scrolling down, will I get anniversary gifts when I make a new character? So those are when you have an account that's been around for 1 year or more. Whenever the anniversary festival comes around in April, you get some special rewards boxes with some special presents, and you get some bits and stuff for free. Now they've said yes, you will get your anniversary gifts. However, some level restricted pre-order items, such as the Aria of the Valar from Mordor, will not be available until the Legendary world advances further in the story. Okay, so you're only going to have items that are relevant to whatever content is currently released, nothing beyond that, but you will get it later. It will be distributed later. Okay. Will I be able to keep playing on my non-Legendary server as well? Yes. The Legendary server experience does not impact on your ability to play on other worlds. Okay, so normal worlds still going on as normal, still the same support. They're not closing any worlds or anything like that, so don't panic. They're still going to get the updates to live, patches to live, whatever, they're not ignoring those. Okay, so don't get too concerned about that. Will Standing Stone Games continue to develop the non-legendary worlds? Yes, we have no intention of adjusting our frequent, regular and active development of the non-legendary game worlds, and have plans for them well into the future. Okay, and we know that it's going to be sufficiently into the future because of something else that gets mentioned somewhere in this FAQ. Can I transfer my shared account items from a legendary server to a non-legendary server? No, sorry, you cannot transfer shared account items onto a legendary server. So for those of you who don't know, items that you put in shared storage are typically accessible to all characters on a server. But using the character transfer tool, you can actually transfer items from your shared server to another server, okay? And vice versa, so you can make use of that. I'm not sure if there's a fee for the shared storage stuff. There is obviously a transfer fee for characters. But I can't say I've ever used that service myself. Is there Pdmp on the legendary server? Yes, there will. Oh no, sorry, there will be no Pdmp available at launch. But they did qualify at launch. Okay, so it implies that there could be some later on. I suspect there's probably going to be some balancing issues in there. I suspect that's probably going to be a technical issue because it's running the same code base as live. In order to be able to have one client that can support both game servers, you don't have to download a separate client which only has half the code. I suspect that's probably a technicality because if they did have Pdmp enabled at launch, it's probably going to level you straight up past level 50 to the current level cap. So that's probably a technicality. If I purchase an account-based service or item from the LOTRO store on the legendary server, does it apply to the non-legendary servers as well? Yes, additionally previously purchased account-based items will be available on both worlds. So what they mean by account purchases, okay? This will be something you buy from the store that will apply to all characters on your account. So examples for that could be things like character slots, inventory bags, space increases where you get the extra 5 slots, those kind of things that apply to all characters on your account. So regardless of which server you play on with your account, you get the benefits of your account on that server. Okay. Do I need to download a different game client to play on the legendary servers? No, the legendary server will be available from the select game world menu when logging in through the regular LOTRO client. Okay. So the fact that you're using the same client means you obviously must be using the same code. Otherwise, you'd need two separate things, okay? I suspect the reason why they're doing it as they are, despite the fact that, maybe they could have done it true vanilla style where they take the code from like 10 years ago and use that. The reality is, there's been so many bugs, they're not going to fix those bugs. People will be going back and exploiting bugs that used to exist then that don't exist now, and it's just too much hassle, whereas they can use one code base. They can fix bugs in that single code base and it'll work for both the normal worlds and it'll work for the legendary world. Okay, so it makes it easier for them to maintain. Bear in mind, obviously, they're a smaller team these days, so they don't want the hassle, so they can keep people happy with this service while at the same time not really causing themselves more hassle with the maintenance of both the live and the new legendary world. Can I access all of the LOTRO world and content on the legendary server? Eventually, yes, but not at launch, as we focus on the Shadows of Angmar story. The character level cap will be 50 when the legendary server opens, and areas of the game world and content above level 50 will not be available at first. Okay, so that will come later on. So they're not explicitly saying what content, but it seems to literally be anything under 50. So as I say, things like Evendim, Forakel were not available originally in Shadows of Angmar. They came a bit later, but still before Mines of Moria. I suspect that from the words they're using, that will still be in there, everything below level 50. When will content beyond Shadows of Angmar become available on the legendary server? Currently, we plan on expanding the content on the legendary server approximately every 4 months. Okay, so every 4 months they'll unlock new stuff. Okay, now it's not clear what that would mean every 4 months. it seems to be from the promo video they've done. They basically highlighted the various expansions and the expansion logos. Okay, so I'm guessing that every 4 months they'll unlock the next expansion. Okay, now obviously there are loads of updates in between expansions where it might just be a new region that gets added. So typically there's always at least one region between expansions that gets released. Sometimes there might be a level cap increase, sometimes there might not be. But I don't suspect that is going to be part of the every 4 months updates. Okay, so I expect, launch day November. They're going to have Shadows of Angmar. 4 months after that, we'd have Moria. 4 months after that, we'd have Mirkwood, and so on until it catches up with live. Okay, so if that's true, okay, and there's not going to be intermediary updates between expansions, so you're going to start with Shadows of Angmar. You've got Mines of Moria is the first expansion. Siege of Mirkwood, Rise of Isengard, Riders of Rohan, Helm's Deep, and Mordor. So you've got 6 expansions, okay? So 6 lots of 4 months. That's quite a way into the future, okay? So you can guarantee that, they've got plans for at least that period of time for their Legendary world, and obviously that's just for releasing content. Never mind whatever content comes over, that period of time. So you're looking at basically like 2 years, basically. For them to try and catch up to what it is now. But obviously in 2 years, who knows where we're going to be, because on the live worlds we might have had another expansion or 2, who knows. So they've clearly got a long game plan, at least 2 years in the future, because they're not going to magically turn the servers off overnight. So they've got a long-term plan. They're investing in the game, which is something that's good. Long-term stability is good for the game, and you might not agree with everything they do, but you'd rather them to be able to maintain the servers and that's what they're doing. So it's all good. And then potentially as well, who knows? This could maybe be a bit of a revenue driver for them as well, because if they're only making it available to VIP players, and granted, yes, it does suck if you're not a VIP player and you have no intention of paying, that you won't be able to play on this server. But maybe it might be the little bit of incentive that someone needs to go, do you know what? I'll become a subscriber. I'll pay so I can get on this server. And maybe it just increases their revenue. It means that they can, maybe hire more staff, invest more in development. Who knows? So, it could be good for them. Give them a bit of a cash injection. We've done that one. Will legendary weapons be available on the legendary server? Not at launch. Once the legendary server unlocks the Mines of Moria story, you'll be able to get a legendary weapon. Okay, so that gives credence to the fact Shadows of Angmar, they didn't exist. You're not going to have one. Once we get to Moria, then they're going to exist. Okay, but they exist in their current style, not as they were at launch. The low levels, there's not that much of a difference really. Can I play instances and skirmishes on the legendary server? Traditional and scaling instances appropriate to the Shadows of Angmar story and available at or below level 50 will be open on the legendary server immediately. Skirmishes and instances designed to play above level 50 will not be available on the legendary server until the story advances. Okay, so anything that was doable below level 50 or at level 50 is available. Anything that requires that high level, you're not going to have access to. Is there a separate European legendary server? No. Players from all territories can play together on the legendary server. So again, it's implying singular. And German and French speaking players can play on legendary using the localized game clients. Okay. Will the legendary server have festivals and anniversary events like the other worlds? Yes, most festivals will be available for all worlds, including legendary. A very limited amount of events might occur in a region that the legendary world has not yet advanced to, but would become accessible once the story or level cap advances into those areas. Okay, so most festivals are generally localized in the starter regions, around the party tree in the Shire, near Hengstacer Farm in Breeland, around the various starter hubs. Some events might take you elsewhere. Particularly I'm thinking of the anniversary festival with some of those quests that kind of take you around the world. So generally you should be able to do most events at a festival without any problems. Can I use character boosts on the legendary server? While the use of experience potions and items is permitted, players will not be able to use or purchase character level boosts for example, Gifts of the Valor. So things that directly increase your character's level, not things that accelerate how fast you gain experience. So you can't buy those boosts on the Legendary World until a later time once the story and level cap has advanced further. Okay, so they're not having those at launch. I think the original Gift of the Valor did take you up to like level 50 or something like that. Maybe 60, I can't remember. I think it was 50. But that's not going to be available once they start getting to maybe Moria, maybe Mirkwood. Then they'll unlock the first Valar boost. Once they get to Mordor or whatever, they'll unlock the second one that takes you to 95 or 100 or whatever it is. If I previously purchased expansions or quest packs, will I be able to access them on Legendary once the server progresses to them? Yes. Any previously purchased expansions and quest packs will be honoured and allow you access on Legendary once the server reaches that point in the story. Okay, so you're not going to be fleeced for your money twice, so you don't have to worry about that. Is the Legendary server a classic or vanilla server? By most descriptions, a classic server is an attempt to recreate LOTRO exactly as it was at launch, using only assets and contents that were available in 2007. A Legendary server runs alongside existing servers and therefore contains many of the changes that have been made to the game over the years, such as UI improvements, bug fixes, changes to game systems, etc. In cases where we have updated or changed the layout of regions, so for example the revamp to Breeze look, the revamp to Evendim, the revamp to the Shire, when we've changed the layout of regions, the Legendary server uses the updated versions of the regions. In cases where we have changed items or player abilities, the Legendary server uses those updated abilities. So for example, trait trees. Some content or gameplay that isn't appropriate to the Legendary server's current level cap may be restricted. So for example, at launch you can't do anything beyond level 50. Until that portion of the story unlocks with the level cap increases. One does not simply walk into Mordor on Legendary until the time comes. Okay, so it's certainly an interesting concept, shall we say. But there's still loads of questions that people have had. The only official response we have had so far is Cordovan, the community manager, has just said we'll have more answers to a lot of these questions as we get closer to release. Okay, now bear in mind it's being released November 2018, so it's only a few weeks away. It doesn't say when in November. I think it's safe to say it's probably not going to be the start of November. You're probably looking middle to end of November. But it'll be interesting to see what it does. It'll be interesting to see, how many players will be interested in that. Because really the main reason you're going to roll a character on that server is you want to experience a sort of end game that's not the current end game. You can experience a level 50 end game because everyone is level 50 and doing level 50 content. Then it expands, and then you've got the Mines of Moria level 60 end game, and everyone's doing the level 60 instances. So it could be interesting to people that kind of want a degree of nostalgia of certain end games back in the day, even though it's not going to be exactly as it was then because you're using the new game systems, not the old. You could entice players that were never around in those time periods to go and say, well, I wasn't around, I didn't start playing till Helm's Deep, let's see what the Moria endgame was sort of like back in the day. And maybe even it could even draw people that have quit the game, draw them back to the game and make them think, this sounds interesting, let's subscribe and re-roll a new character on there. And I have seen a couple of posts on social media of people that do fall into that camp, so it certainly could be interesting. But so this is all we know so far anyway, so I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. How many of you are going to be interested in rolling a character on there? I'm considering it. Whether or not that's something that I would end up YouTubing or streaming remains to be seen. Probably not day-to-day leveling, but it'd certainly be interesting to maybe stream some group content at the various end games in there, if that's something you guys would be interested in seeing. But yeah, until we have more news on this, that is all for now. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and until next time, I will see you guys later.